Welcome back to Iron Game Chalk Talk. I'm your host, Ron McKeefrey, and this is episode number 44. Iron Game Chalk Talk is a weekly podcast where I bring on experts in the field of strength and conditioning to talk a little shop with all of us. If you haven't already done so, make sure you go to iTunes or YouTube and to subscribe to Iron Game Chalk Talk so that you get the weekly updates, or go to my website, ronmckeefrey.com, and join the mailing list so that way I can make sure to keep you up to date on anything that I have going on as well as each episode. On the website, you'll also find all the show notes for this episode and any of the other episodes that we've done in the past, with links to our guests as well as anything else that we mentioned, books, recommendations, all those kinds of things. This week I'm excited to have Elliott Hulse with us. Elliot is the owner of Strength Camp, a training facility in St. Petersburg, Florida. I met Elliot when I was the head strength coach at the University of South Florida, and struck up a friendship. Great guy, great energy, doing some really, really neat things online and in the community, and just an all-around good guy for us to all learn from. You know, in this episode we discuss his 4 layers of strength, which I think is really neat, and how he trains for the multi-sport athlete. We get a little bit into strongman training and some things along those lines, but it's a great episode. You'll get a lot out of it, and like I said, he's a wealth of information. Before we get going too far, I want to make sure we recognize our sponsors, Ignition APG, as well as Elite Form. Both are sponsors for 2014 and help to make this show free for everybody. Elite Form is a sports science company that is creating technologies to help evaluate athletes and enhance strength training sessions. Their strength planner, their paperless app, and their strength tracker are game changers, in my opinion. They're really neat tools for the strength and conditioning coach. And so I can't recommend enough reaching out to Skip and the gang there at eliteform.com and exploring how they can help you better your athletes. For a free 30-day trial of the Strengths Planner, all you need to do is email IGCT at eliteform.com, and they'll hook you up with a free 30-day trial. And it's getting away from the spreadsheets, the Excel spreadsheets and things along those lines. So definitely well worth your time to explore, because it's going to gain so much time on the back end. If you enjoy these podcasts, then you'll really enjoy strength-ondemand.com. Strength on Demand is an online archive of strength and conditioning clinic presentations that I've collected and put on with Rob Taylor, and just a wealth of information there. There's always over 50 strength and conditioning clinic presentations, so it helps, if you can't make it to a clinic for professional development or continuing ed. This is a great option for you. You can do it anywhere you got an internet access on your time. So it's a product that we sat back and we said we wish we had, and so we decided to create it. All right, so let's get into this week's episode with Elliot. Sit back and enjoy. Take care. All right, guys, back with Elliott Hulse. You probably recognize him from the 9 million people that have watched his YouTube channel, but the guy's a stud. I've known him for quite some time. He's from the Tampa area, St. Pete area, and when I was down in South Florida, I got a chance to get to know him a little bit, and it's just done, just been kicking butt ever since. So, man, I appreciate you coming on the show, brother.
Oh, it's my pleasure. The minute you asked me, I knew I had to get on with you, bro.
Well, hey, man, for the guys that don't know you as well, give us a little bit of your background, how you got into the business, and then, what you're currently doing.
I guess I'll start at college. I was a really good high school football player, so I earned an athletic scholarship to play football at St. John's, which was a 1AA program at the time, and I did real well. I mean, not to blow my own horn, but I was a damn good athlete. I led the team in sacks and touchdowns in the same season, so which was rare, to have someone play both sides of the ball at that level and then to excel that way. So I attributed a lot of my success to the fact that my uncle was a bodybuilder, power lifter, gymnast, and all-around athlete who taught me in high school how to weight train. I mean, I was one of the only kids in high school that knew how to use a barbell properly. I was squatting, deadlifting, pressing. He taught me how to power clean. Years before that, when I was a kid, he had me doing push-ups and sit-ups and climbing rope. And I mean, strength and fitness, strength and conditioning, health, it was just an integral part of my life. So when I got the college scholarship, my passion for strength and conditioning grew, and I loved being in the weight room just as much as I loved being out on the field. So much so that I even invited a lot of my friends who were on the team, different from different positions, to come over to my house in the summer, right. And I began training them. So it was just meant to be. I was supposed to be a coach in that way. So I studied exercise physiology once I graduated, and I did that at Springfield University for a few years. But quite frankly, I just got tired of the academic side of things, and I wanted some real action. So I began several internships and started working in the field. A few years later, I guess long story short, I went through the struggles of entrepreneurship, starting up with no money and no one to give you the time of day. And I've been able to build my way through a career that began in a warehouse gym to now basically my training studio / warehouse gym / product production video man cave, I guess you could call it, which is Strength Camp. And it's just been a wild ride, and I'm grateful for all the success that I've been able to achieve.
Well, I know you've had struggles along the way, and I mean, it even goes back further than that. I mean, you started out of a van even almost, didn't you?
Yeah, if you want to get into the details, we absolutely can. So once I graduated, my wife and I got married because I was thinking of going into the Marines as an officer once I graduated high school, and I got tired of grad school. And it was 9/11. It was post 9/11. So believe it or not, the Marine office was backed up pretty far, right. And they kept pushing my date back to go to boot camp, officer candidate school. And along that path of waiting, which I guess is typical in the Marines, they say hurry up and wait is one of their mottos, right? So I hurried up and I had to wait. Yep. So I got to experience that before officer candidate school. And in that wait, my wife and I decided to get married because it's one of the things that you do before you go off to battle, right?
Right. Absolutely.
And right, make sure you got a woman at home. So we got married and started having children. By that time, we got pregnant. By that time, they're calling me saying, "All right, you're ready to go," and I'm like, "Nope." Yeah. Right. I started putting roots in the ground. So life began, and in order to start caring for my young family, I was a personal trainer. And like most of us start out in a commercial gym where, you do what you love, but you're taking orders. You quickly realize that you're not so much an expert as you are a salesman. Mm-hmm. And the strangest thing about that is that you're selling your time. So the more time you sell, the less time you have to sell.
That's right.
So it's kind of like, it's a dead end. It's a complete dead end because I got really good at selling because I realized really quickly, I was like, okay, the key to this is being able to sell. So if I get really good at selling, I'll have as many clients as I want. So I did that. I got really good at selling, face-to-face presentation, marketing. I studied it all while I was working at this gym, this commercial gym. And I packed my schedule, and I was like, okay, great. Now I have no time to sell.
That's right.
Which would have, led me to being able to earn more and take care of my family. So because I figured I had learned enough about salesmanship and marketing through my experiences of working in a commercial gym, and I did really well, I figured I'm going to start my own business with absolutely no experience whatsoever, no clients whatsoever, no financial backing whatsoever, a baby and another one on the way, and a new mortgage. And I'm like, well, let's see what happens. And that's where we end up in the van that you talked about. So, I couldn't afford to train at a gym or to open a gym. And way before there were boot camps, the boot camps are all very popular now. I mean, everywhere you look, there's boot camps, all kinds of camps going on. There really were none. And I was kind of like a pioneer in that way, in that in my city, I was like the only guy that would fill up his van, which I had this old 1988 van that my dad gave me, no windows, balled out tires. I mean, the thing was, it was just a monster. I filled it up with training equipment that really wasn't training equipment. It was sandbags and tires and trash that I found in the city. again, an innovation that was brand new at the time. There weren't many people doing that. And I drive around the city to local parks and do workouts for people. And I called it Strength Camp. I said, come to my Strength Camp. And that slowly picked up. I mean, it was difficult. There were times I'd show up and nobody was there. And, I didn't charge very much. And I remember one time having to push my van because I didn't have gas in it. And I tried to use my debit card and it was maxed out. I mean, I went through all the rigors of entrepreneurship. I was able to earn just enough to open up a small garage that I paid $900 for a month in the really bad side of town. And when I say bad side of town, I mean we literally had drug dealers and prostitutes like 2 houses down. And part of the reason why I had to move out of that gym is because one of the drug dealers started giving me like problems. Right. And I was like, this guy has nothing to lose, so I had better get the hell out of here. So that warehouse gym, which I called Strength Camp, the very first incarnation of Strength Camp, I trained a lot of athletes and then I trained men. This was about 2007. 2008, the stock market crashed and the housing market crashed, and there goes whatever seedling of a business I had, because people were like, what? The first thing to go is luxuries, and training for most people are luxuries. So it simply wasn't going to work. I would have had to go and get a job, except I realized through some of the studies that I did about marketing that I can find a way to market my gym and my services online by creating products. And what I began doing is I take just a tiny little, like these that we use now, right. Except we call them flip cams. Yeah. They had nothing, it was just like a little thing, you hit a button, and I started recording the workouts that I was doing with the kids. I trained a couple of athletes, and I'd record the workouts, and then I'd upload them to my computer. I started selling DVDs of the workouts, and I started uploading some of the videos also to YouTube, and started building a following online that way. I had a DVD of the month where I was selling just the workouts I was doing with the kids at my gym. That's all it was. There was nothing fantastic about it. It was like, here's the workout we're doing this month. Here's day 1, day 2, day 3, and so on and so forth. And that saved my butt. And I turned that into multiple different training products, some relating to sports training, football training. We did a sprinting product and, muscular imbalances. I've got all kinds of products that I've been creating over the past several years related to muscle strength, conditioning. Right. And it's really just exploded over the past 2 or 3 years. So for that, I'm grateful.
Well, I bring that up because, as strength coaches, you don't ever reach success unless you go through the struggle, and I truly believe that. You might obtain success early, but then the first time of adversity, all of a sudden you just don't know how to handle yourself. So it's an important life lesson and professional lesson to go through that, because you come out that much stronger on the other end. There's no doubt. And obviously the success that you've had is you can attribute back to those days of grinding and fighting for every dollar and referral and everything that you had come your way. So and it's an important lesson in there, and you had a great story. So I want to make sure everybody heard that. What were some of the when you got into the pure strength side of things, who have been some of the biggest influences in your philosophy development through the years?
Oh, wow. That's the most interesting part of this, because I would study everything from one end of the spectrum to the other. Mm-hmm. And on one end of the spectrum, which I'm just going to call the left, if you will, I spent a lot of time studying with Paul Chek. Yep. And if you know anything about Paul Chek, he is actually a holistic health practitioner. And he's also what they would call now a neurosomatic therapist. He was a massage therapist, strength and conditioning coach. I mean, he spoke at different strength and conditioning conferences like you have. And the guy all across the board, just a genius in anatomy, physiology, functional anatomy. He's the one that coined the term core strength and did an entire course on the core. I mean, he was like a fad creator, a fad destroyer. He's one of the pioneers in our industry. And I spent a lot of time studying with him early on. This is really the foundation of my unique brand of fitness that we could talk about later. And then you go to the other end of the spectrum, and And I started studying a lot of Louis Simmons stuff and just pure powerlifting. I spent a lot of time on the Elite FTS board and Joe DeFranco's website. I spent a lot of time on just like the pure power, aggression, strength, powerlifting. I also got involved with strongman training, and I became a professional strongman. So Tom Mitchell was my coach at the time, and I used a lot of the techniques that I learned through the sport of strongman and all of the personal and muscular and performance development associated with stuff that we now kind of take for granted in our industry, but was brand new at the time, like flipping tires and lifting stones and dragging sleds. Right. You know, this was all kind of early on. You know, this was back in like 2006 that I was doing this stuff that, you know, now like it's a fad with CrossFit and stuff. So like I said, like I can dance with you on either end where you want to go, you know?
No doubt, no doubt. Well, you know, I think, you know, one of the things that makes you unique, and like you said, your unique style, is that, you know, you really throw, it's more than just training the body, it's training the mind and training the spirit and the whole deal. And you talked a little bit about the 4 layers of strength. You know, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I had a foundation over here where you know, holistic health is concerned, and seeing the athlete as a multidimensional character, or dynamic organism, as opposed to a machine that needs to jump higher and run faster. Right. You know, I mean, that's the approach that we typically take. But, you know, you've got to consider that this is a human being. You know, what kind of relationship is he having with his girlfriend? You know, did he just get dumped, or did he get syphilis? You know, and are his parents divorced? You know, that may have had some sort of impact on his performance. You know, is he sleeping enough at night? There's so many different things to consider besides, are the numbers going up on this tracking sheet that I've created, and are the percentages correct? So there's that. That's where I came from, which laid the foundation for me. But then there's also the side where I became a professional strongman. It's like, you do whatever you have to do to get shit done. It does not matter. Balls to the wall, nose to the grinder. If you're not cheating, you're not winning. You're not trying hard enough. Break your ass until you die. And I totally went from one end to the other. And when I was training for strongman, and you know, I had the professional status, and I was going towards, actually, I was slated to be, you know, many people had me predicted to be America's strongest man at my body weight, my weight class, which was 231, and I damn sure was. Right before the show where that would have happened, I popped my bicep. Very common injury in strongman. Yeah. Usually due to some unhealthy practices, both physiologically and physically, if you know what I mean. Oh, no doubt. So, popped the bicep, tendon just tore right off the bone, and I can tell you that my life changed on many different levels on that day. You could say that the popping of my bicep deflated me physically, emotionally, and physiologically. I was like 250-something pounds at the time. Today, you're looking at me at like, you know, a little over 200. But, you know, and then I'll even go down to 190. Totally different. And it's because I used that opportunity to learn a valuable life lesson. And not only to learn it, but to begin implementing it in my own self and to teach it to others. And that is this holistic approach to strength that also contains the masculine aggressiveness. Because if you dance around on this side of the spectrum too much, you end up with, you know, airy-fairy yoga instructors, and you know, everybody's eating tree leaves and shit. You end up on this spectrum. I mean, you got blood vessels busting in your eyes and
bicep off the bone.
Huh?
You're ripping your bicep off the bone.
Yeah, you're tearing your bicep off, and you're constipated. Right. So what I've done is I've really tried to take both ends of this spectrum and blend it together in a way that you could take all the value associated with this tender approach and mix it with a true masculine male aggressiveness and produce what I call someone who is the strongest version of themselves. And it's a balance between these two. The way I do this is by, of course, there are many different methods for personal development, but what I call it are the 4 layers of strength. And we pay attention to how balanced we are amongst all 4 of those layers and how balanced we are with them each on a micro level. The very first one is neuromuscular strength. We start there because it's the most appeasing to this side of the spectrum and the one that I come to the world with. And that is how balanced is your muscular system, and how is it integrated with your nervous system? In other words, do you have structural integrity, and does your body move gracefully? Are you strong and aggressive and powerful, but are you also supple with ability to move? Great emphasis is paid on that type of balance on the neuromuscular level. The reason why I call them layers of strength is because that's the most superficial layer, if you will, and then they get deeper. One layer deeper than that is your physiological strength that is intrinsically linked to your muscular system. I mean, if you study anatomy and physiology, you recognize that the muscular system is, through different neurological pathways, linked with the organs, with the viscera. Right. One easy example to understand how real that is if you're gonna have a heart attack, what do they tell you? One of the first signs that you're gonna have a heart attack. Your left arm goes down. Yeah. So the entire muscular expression of the left arm goes limp. So you're walking around like this because you're about to have a heart attack. What does the left arm have to do with the viscera, with the organ, with the heart, which is a metaphorical and literal expression of the human being? It's because they're tied together. Your muscular system is working with your organ system. The other, what some people would call the second brain, is located in the digestive tract. It's located in the gut, in the stomach. Yeah. Well, if you're familiar with the term viscerosomatic inhibition and the guts, the response to inflammation in your gut by your muscular system, your pelvic floor, the transversus abdominis, all the stabilizers of your pelvis will go limp. They'll just shut off. They'll completely have motor sensory amnesia if there's prolonged inflammation in your colon. And that happens as a product of eating foods that are just you're either intolerant to or irritating to your gut lining. Right. So you've got physiological strength that you can't ignore. How can you possibly develop the neuromuscular strength associated with full expression as an athlete if your viscera, your visceral system, or your autonomic nervous system is damaged? Makes sense. A layer beyond that, and the deepest of the 4 layers, and of course I'm just describing 3. The last one kind of moves out a bit. But the core of this is what I call energetic strength. The easy way to describe energetic strength is to bring everything back out of the peripheral nervous system and into the central nervous system, up into this magnificent organic computer that we have in our skull. Right. And how it's influenced by your environment, your thoughts, the processes that are, the triune processes that the human being is always working through and trying to reconcile. We have our neocortex, or our higher thinking, the human brain. And below that, you also have the cortex, or that mammalian brains. We've got mammalian, emotional brain, if you will. And then the brainstem medulla, which is sort of our reptilian brain, our reactive, our id, if you would. Yeah. To psychology, id, ego, superego. There's these 3 parts of the human being that we're constantly trying to reconcile and work with. And how that all affects your physiology. I mean, it doesn't take much to recognize how your thoughts affect if you get butterflies in your stomach, what is that? Well, you're nervous in your head because of a story you're telling yourself or external circumstances. Now you got butterflies in your stomach. Well, what is that doing? Well, it's disrupting the way that because there's a removal of blood from the digestive system out into the muscular system because of the sympathetic response. It's destroying your ability to digest food. Well, if you're having a difficult ability digesting food, how does that affect your muscular system? Right. It's all linked together. No doubt. And then finally, I know I'm talking a shitload, it's kind of like our, I've changed the name of it multiple different times. Right now I'm going to refer to it as ecological strength, but essentially how the human organism fits into his environment and how to live, how to be with, how to coordinate your desires and services and wants and needs with the people around you and the world at large.
That's a great point. I mean, obviously, going into a situation that I am right now where, taking over a football team that hasn't won a lot of games in the last couple of years. You talk about culture and changing a culture, that absolutely has an impact on somebody's training process altogether. So I totally buy into that. I think that's great stuff. Yeah. One of the things that with you that I know, you work with a lot of, like you said, high school athletes and elite athletes, general athletes, but we work a lot with the multi-sport athlete. How does your overall philosophy kind of fit into training somebody that's in season 9 months out of the year?
You train, and this is the way I look at it, especially when you're training younger athletes, and which is the majority of what we do here. It's mostly high school athletes, college athletes. When you start getting into the professional athletes, and you're training by position, or you're training Olympic athletes, you're training by mastery in a particular activity, it's a totally different ball game, completely different ball game. But when you're working with the multi-sport athlete or the young athlete, you train the athlete, not the sport. And that's the way I look at it. It's more a matter of how can I make this a better organism so that he can go out there and do whatever he does from a place of power and strength. So it begins, like I said earlier, with the 4 layers of strength, balancing the muscular system, strengthening the muscular system, bringing power to the muscular system, and integrating it with the other layers of strength that I talked about. Very basic stuff.
That's great. One of the things that I've been following you through the years and just seeing you in your videos and talking to you through a handful of times, you're very transparent. You kind of share life experience and what you're going through and with your athletes. Talk a little bit about the relationship with the athlete and having that transparency with them to help them grow, not just in the weight room, but outside the 4 walls of the weight room as well.
Well, if I could refer to the 4th layer of strength that I described before as ecological strength and your interaction with your environment, the way to have the greatest impact with those in your environment, the way to have the deepest influence with those who you're seeking to coach or uplift is to build trust. I mean, it is the glue that allows this whole thing to happen. And transparency, authenticity are the foundations of trust. So, in an industry and in a world where everyone's posturing, I mean, that's just what we do. We posture as human beings. I'm above you because of this, and I'm an expert because of this. I have a particular ego or a mask that I need to maintain in order for you to relate to me in a way that I've deemed appropriate, builds walls between us. I've just found that it's, we'll take it one way or another, however you'd like to, but it's been my experience that if I'm open and honest with the people I'm looking to influence, there's a deeper influence. There's a deeper sense of influence because it shows that, look, I'm human just like you. I'm evolving and growing just like you. I'm on this journey just like you. Here are a few things that I've learned along the way. I'd like to share it with you. Hopefully it's of value. And that's the way I do it. I never position myself as the end-all be-all expert and the man who is right and true and needs to be followed like a religion. That's never my purpose. It's to share experiences, ideas, and point people in directions that can support them in their overall strength and the trust that's associated with allowing me in that way comes from authenticity.
No, and in that same light, you in those videos and on your website and different things, you talk about your family quite a bit. And I know that you're, obviously a great, strong family man. Talk about balancing your family with your work. I mean, you've got a million things going on between the business, the online business, the competitions, your own training, the whole deal. How do you balance it all?
I wish I could say that it was as balanced as I'd like it to be. For example, my desire, I'm kind of like all or none type person in many ways, which is imbalanced. I'd love to homeschool my kids. I'd love to be on a farm where they wake up every day and we're out working in the yard and we teach them the values that we want them to learn in the home. But it didn't work out that way, and I sent them to school. So,
sure.
So it creates a totally different dynamic than what I would have really wanted, but it also gives more room to my ability to serve people outside of my home, and that's why I have the time and the ability to create all the videos and the products and write the books and all the online interactions that I have, the people who I mentor that are not my children. But to really develop a paradigm where you realize that what you do, or at least for me, what I do is not nearly as important as who I am. Mm-hmm. I'm constantly working on self-cultivation and personal development, because I know that even if I have less time with my children, more time with my children, less time in my business, more time in my business, it's how I'm coming to the table that matters more than the actual activity or the time given to the activity. Do you see? Yeah. So if I'm with my children, I want to give 100%, even if it is only 4 hours a day, you see? Right. But I want to be there 100%, and that requires a level of discipline, a level of attention to allow yourself to be fully present in every single moment. You leave the office at the office, you're 100% present when you're home. Same thing, vice versa.
No, I think that's a great point, especially a good one for strength coaches in general, because it's, the outside looking in, my own family, looks at our situations, and they don't understand how you could go work a 12, 16-hour day and then, still be a good dad, or not make a single wrestling match until maybe the last one or something and still be a good dad. And it's really, you're absolutely right. It's when I'm with my children, I'm 100% devoted to them, the dynamic works for us. Not everybody fully understands that, but they get to experience a lot of great things, and they know that their dad loves them very, very much. And I know that's, I think that you stress that throughout your entire career, and it's something that's I applaud, because it's it's something that's refreshing to see.
It's interesting. Our great-great-grandfathers, not that I was there, but from what I understand, they learned and they taught through apprenticeship, and usually it began in the home. So, if you were a shoemaker, your son was going to be a shoemaker, because you needed an apprentice and your son needed work. And in that way, your career or your job or your craft or your service, when you see it as an extension of who you are, you have no choice but to bring your children up in it. Yeah. And I had a guy who came here to the gym yesterday to visit, and he brought his son, and his son was like 3 years old, running around, while we're working out stuff. I mean, he's flipping tires, and his son's like over with his wife watching and stuff. And it just reminded me of when I was a pro strongman, and my wife would come. She'd set up a little blanket on the floor, at the place I was training. The kids would be eating snacks on the floor, and I'm like, 4 feet away, lifting 300-pound stones. And it brings peace to my heart to know that, my children are a part of
that's a great point.
What I do as a service to the world.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point. All your business, experience and it's the hard part about strength and conditioning is that when you dive completely into it, sometimes you get in this strength and conditioning bubble, and you don't think about the other aspects, but branding is an important aspect. You got to constantly sell yourself, sell your program, get athletes to buy into it, and those types of things. Talk a little bit about how you've developed, your brand and the importance of branding as a strength coach.
If I could sum it up in one word, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, it's authenticity. Mm-hmm. It's realness, being raw, being real, being authentic. And when you're authentic, you're going to naturally attract those who have a magnetic affinity towards you. Not everyone's going to love you. And that's a marketing position also. Dan Kennedy says that if you haven't pissed someone off by noon every single day, then you're not saying enough. You don't go out there looking to piss people off, but you're divisive, right? Simply because you're yourself. I mean, if you are truly yourself, you're going to be divisive. But that's a strong position to take. And when you take a strong position, the affinity for people towards you is going to grow, right? As well as those who you're going to push away. And it's a normal, natural way of developing influence. And marketing and branding is about influence. I think I remember reading a book about Hitler, and he talks about how if there were no Jews, he'd have to create it. And in other words, he used the Jewish people as a divisive tool in order to draw national strength around a particular group of people. And he understood this principle of being divisive, of creating contrast. Anyone who's just being authentic is going to create contrast. And in that contrast, you're going to build strength in your position, especially with people who it resonates with.
No, I agree. The your experience as a strongman and having sometimes by necessity coming up with new protocols and new implements through your training. What do you think is the next popular implement or protocol that strength coaches should be looking at?
It's funny because I really believe in old school thinking, and when I say that, I much rather read books from Greek philosophers and Plato, who was a wrestler, and Hippocrates, who developed the foundation of what we call modern medicine, because they were more centered on developing a strong person.
Right.
And when you develop a strong person, you recognize all constituents of what makes a human being or a person a person. A strong man isn't just one who has a strong muscular system. They considered all aspects of what it is. And I can't say that this is ever going to be sexy and popular, and it's damn sure is never going to be a fad, because it's anything that is that true can't be a fad. Right? I mean, you need some sort of gimmick for something to be fad. But the idea of a holistic approach to strength is one that I'm heavily invested in, and one that I see growing in its potency and popularity as awareness to these ideas begin to spread, and the science up behind it begins to gain respect and prevalence, and people begin applying it and realizing the benefits of approaching life in this way.
No, it's good, man. It's really good. Well, bro, I know you're a busy guy. We kind of end things off typically with some recommendations and a quote. Give me a quote that's plastered in your weight room or something that you live by.
I'll give you two that kind of both say the same thing, and they're both by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I named my daughter after Emerson because his words have been so profound to me. One of them is, every action is measured by the sentiment from which it proceeds, which basically means it reiterates in his poetic language what I said before. It's less about what you do, but where you're coming from. Who you are is really more important than what you do, because if form equals function, if you will, as a strength coach, you understand that. Form equals function. No doubt. Well, the same thing with the human form. Who you are is going to determine your function, what you do. So always consider that. And then the other one is along the same lines, and it's just a matter of dealing with people, but also looking at yourself objectively in this way. And it is, what you are speaks so loud that I can't hear a word you're saying.
Right.
Because we live in a world that worships words. We worship symbols. We worship books and ideas and abstractions, without really considering its application and where it's coming from, the sentiment from which it proceeds. And going back to these core elements of what it is to be a human being and serve others is what I find to be the most fascinating aspect of this whole journey.
No, that's fantastic, man. Give us, a book, an app, and a website recommendation. Obviously, we're going to link up all your stuff, but give us something that you'd go to.
A book. That's interesting. There's so many books. But you know what? Since we're talking to strength coaches mainly, and this is your career, and you want to be the best that you can, I would invite everybody to read Mastery by Robert Greene.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And he's a historian, and he writes basically biographies of magnificent people throughout history with particular points of interest. And he wrote this book called Mastery, and he goes from Leonardo da Vinci to the most popular scientist of today. I think he talks about who's the coach of Pac-Man, the boxer, Pacquiao. I think Futch.
Golly, people are going to kill me for not knowing this.
Was it Futch? If I'm saying the right name?
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Anyway, he even talks to the mastery of coaching. And it's a fascinating read for anybody who's trying to gain perspective on becoming the absolute best at what they do. Book. So that's book. Let me see. App, which means I need to open up my own phone. And I can tell you right now, the one that I use more than any is audible.com because I listen, I'm constantly studying, and audiobooks allows you to study while you exercise. So while I'm exercising, I listen to Audible books.
No, that's a good one. That's real good.
And what was the last one? I don't know the last
one. Website that maybe you check out regularly.
It's a good question. I don't really. I mean, if there's one website that I probably frequent more than others, it's probably Amazon.com because I'm buying books for you. I don't really spend much time reading websites. If you look around, I mean, I'm on my desk right now doing all types of research. I mean, it's just books all over the place.
Right.
So, and Amazon gets a crap load of my money.
They get a lot of mine as well. Well, that's great, man. Well, man, I know you're busy, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing the information with us. I'm going to link up your website and things like that. You got anything else going on you want to kind of direct people to?
No. I mean, if you really want to get a taste of what I'm doing, just check out, my social media, which is, Elliott Hulse at Twitter and Facebook, and YouTube is really where I've made the most impact because I make lots and lots of videos.
Mm-hmm. Well, good, man. Well, appreciate it, bud. Thanks a lot.
You got it. It was a pleasure.
Okay, guys, a couple quick things before we let you go. Don't forget to check out EliteForm.com and let them know how much we appreciate them for bringing this show to you for free. It was awesome to have Elliott Hulse on the show today. Please join me in the comment section at ronmckeefery.com thanking Elliot for coming on the show and sharing his info with us. All the show notes for this episode and the others with links that were mentioned are on the site as well. While you're there, make sure you join the mailing list so you get updates on new shows and anything else I have going on. If you haven't checked out Strength on Demand yet, make sure to do so. It's a fantastic resource, and I know you'll love it. Lastly, please subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube, as well as leave a positive rating and review so we can continue to bring this show to as many strength coaches as possible. That's it for this week. Please check back next week for another great episode of Iron Game Chalk Talk. Take care.